Today I'll show you how I went from this to this. My first steps whenever I make a demake or a game is I always start with the models. The main inspiration for this video and the models is obviously Elden Ring and the quest wherever you meet Alexander the Iron Fist. I started with the meshes, then I rigged them, added animations, which is probably the most fun, and then I colored them all in Photoshop. To get that really grainy look from the PS1 or N64, I downres all the textures from 1024 to 256 by 256. Naturally, my next step was to create the level. I created a little mesh in Blender that encapsulated the landscape you see in the video. Next, I created the background rocks, again using a very simple mesh. Once the meshes were done, I textured and colored the planes in Blender. In actual Elden Ring, you see there's a lot of grass. I didn't want to add a lot of grass because it's supposed to emulate a PS1, so I create some prefabs in Blender for little tiny specks of grass. Next, I added trees, rocks, and then I used polybrush to spread all the prefabs around the map. Next was the process of gameplay. Whenever I make a character controller, I love to start out with a bean and then add my model onto it later. I had to code some third-person controls and then add a camera component, which I used the default component called Cinemachine from Unity. Next, to give the Bloody Wolf character a little more spice, I had to import all the animations and make an animation tree. Now my process in Unity when I animate characters is to set conditions. So for example, condition if running, if the condition is true, then the character plays the running animation. This works fine, but when you have big projects with a lot of animations, it's not the best way to use the Unity animation trees. So I was starting to get a little triggered when things weren't working whenever I was pressing the buttons. Luckily, me getting triggered made me also realize that you can just use triggers for certain animations. For example, the attack animations are much faster if you use triggers, and that's what I did. I also ran into a little error whenever I was jumping and rolling. My default animations were moving forward in Blender and I just couldn't get the bean to transfer position, so I just redid the animations in Blender and made them stationary. Now it was time for the final touches. First, I started with the skybox. Once again, I made it in Photoshop, this time using a 3D layer, which I imported as a cube map texture into Unity. After that, I followed Bracky's tutorial on the sound manager script so I could play sounds. And then I used a different method to play footsteps, which is basically you keyframe a sound on the foot animation. Whenever the foot touches the ground, you play a sound. And I also added that to my sound list. Next, I added a stamina bar, which was pretty much just a value of 100 attached to a UI bar, and every action subtracted some amount of stamina from the bar. So essentially, if you were sprinting, you were subtracting 0.1 of a float from the 100, and then the stamina would regenerate over time. Lastly, I added the pot boy, imported his animation, and made a little quest for him, just like you see in a little demo. Pretty much the player would just enter a collider, sound would play, you'd enter another collider, you'd hear his plea for help, and then if you were in a collider behind him and attacked, his position X, Y, and Z would transform, making him jump out of the hole. With that being said, I added a simple particle effect of rain, and the game was finished. All in all, I want to thank you so much for almost 10,000 views on a video. I didn't expect it to get that many. It took a lot of effort, but it was well worth it seeing you guys enjoy it. And I hope you stay and subscribe for more game dev related content. Have an awesome day.